360 feels so old, this time we're wasting, doing everything we're told. This world is heavy, under all of their control. If you want to know.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Solo Spotlight. I'm your host Ryan McDougall, and today's guest is someone that probably wouldn't consider himself a guest or a spotlight type of guy, and that's exactly why I brought him on. Davis is a tow truck driver with AMA. The role at first glance might seem pretty straightforward, but behind the flashing amber lights and the steel wrenches is a man who thinks deeply, helps quietly, and carries himself in a calm, kind presence that you don't run into pretty often. This isn't a conversation about cars or cable. It's about what it means to show up for people when they're stressed out, stuck, or stranded, and how to find meaning in the everyday. We also talk about off-roading, solo living, emotional regulation, and weird stuff people kind of leave in their cars. And what's it like unlocking a stranger's vehicle without looking like a criminal? Episode 23 of Solo Spotlight is honest, unfiltered, and quite powerful. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did recording it. Here's my Solo Spotlight of Davis, AMA tow truck driver. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Episode 22, Solo Spotlight. Thank you very much. So people refer to you as Davis. What first name? It's last name?
So Davis is my first name.
Okay.
It is more common as a last, especially down in the States, but it's my first name.
Okay. Davis. Yeah. So mutual friend of ours, my coworker, recommended. He was like, you should reach out. He's like, you should reach out to Davis, like he does AMA tow truck driving. Like you should have him on. Like he's kind of a social guy. So when he initially brought this to you, what were your?
I was a little surprised because I try to stay fairly humble about myself.
Right.
I'm just a guy. I try to have fun, work hard. So in a lot of ways, I don't feel like I have that much to talk about myself.
Yeah.
But I know there are people out there that are probably curious about what a day in life on the road driving a tow truck is and the realities of that. And just there's a whole lot of other stuff that kind of comes with it. And
I think selfishly, I'm just super interested in meeting new people. Mm-hmm. So then it's like,
hey, works.
I'm also just bringing people on for my own selfish hang out and chill, right? Mm-hmm. So again, welcome. Thank you for coming out. I was really excited. I was telling everybody about this because I was like, okay, the thing I don't want is to run out of questions. I don't want to run out of questions and then be like, oh, what are we going to talk about? Or some people get the idea that oh, what are you going to do? Just talk about tow trucks. It's maybe. It's I feel like I've done enough preparation where I'm like, all right, I can hang. So let's get to know you. First thing I want to ask is, what do you listen to when you're driving? Podcasts, music, radio?
So when I'm out and about on my own, it's usually something streamed off of Spotify. I do a lot of metal, a lot of electronica, a little bit of country, a little bit of hip hop. Kind of just depends on my day. Mm-hmm. When I've got members riding with me in the truck, I will kind of tailor it to them to be a little bit more
or something more consumer friendly, a news radio or whatever the top 3 stations are or something.
Exactly. I've got a lo-fi playlist that I'll play for people when I'm cleaning up collisions and accidents and other high stress,
right?
Just to kind of help them calm and be a little bit more peaceful.
Yeah, you don't want to be listening to death metal and someone just blew all their tires out or something like that.
I have no problem with that, but they might.
But it's you kind of have one of those jobs where I kind of share with you where you kind of live in chaos, right? Where and it's interesting in these jobs because you're always seeing people at an inconvenient time because they're always impatient. They always have sometimes because of the expertise you need, they have stupid questions or it's you know what I mean? Maybe not, but then because I went to the my girlfriend wasn't feeling well. We go to Emerge. The thing says 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Right. We get there. We're there for a total of like 12 hours. Like nothing needed to be done. Go home, rest it off, blah, 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 blah. And through this, I'm like losing my mind because I'm like, I don't want to be here, man. Like I do not, I took a day off to like be with her and whatever it is. And then, but there are a lot of times where I was like, maybe I should just ask. And I was like, no, I'm not going to, because like I hate that shit. Like I kind of like, you have to just understand that like this person is living in like whatever chaos their job is, and you just need to like respect that and like understand that it might not look like they're doing much, but it's like, you know what I mean? That. You get what I'm saying? Where like sometimes in these type of jobs, you just like, people have like different mindsets where it's like, just, you know what I mean? Like I'm a little bit more understanding, or something that I'm dealing with isn't like as crazy, where you're like, okay, wrap it up. Like,
I mean, like there's times at work where, you know, we get out to a call and usually the first things out of my mouth when I get on scene is just like, hey, how's it going? You know, I'm Davis, here to help you out. Sorry about the wait. Just get on top of that. Apologize for the wait time. The wait times are always the number one complaint we get from our members. Is some of them are pretty cool about it. A lot of them are very not cool about it. And it's a level of under promise, over deliver, where as soon as I get the call on my screen, I'm rolling. We don't have any legal jurisdiction to, you know, exceed the speed limits to get out faster, but we do try to get out as quickly as we reasonably can.
You're not taking your time. You're getting there.
No. Right? So like my goal is to get out there as quickly as I can, just cover the bases, get the situation kind of resolved, and then move it on to the next step.
Yeah. Now, how do people react when, like, are people relatively calm by the time you get there? Like, have other agencies got there? Or, like, what is the type of urgency of the situations on average? Like, are you usually dealing with, like, the busted tire and the battery problems, the fuel refills, and then it's, like, once in a dozen you're kind of dealing with?
It really depends on the day. Kind of depends on the weather. Obviously, bad weather days are going to be busier for collisions and people going to the ditch that need to get pulled out. There's no 2 days that are the same. So there's some level of urgency with dealing with the higher risk calls, like somebody's broken down on the side of the white mud or the Henday, or you know, they've been in a collision, their car is still in the middle of the intersection. Like, those do get a higher priority. The other, like, highest priority we focus on is animals and children that are locked in cars. Those are our absolute highest.
Okay.
So that's our number one. If we get a call like that and it gets dispatched to us, we drop everything that we're doing and we go to that.
Now, do you guys just, like, in that case, if it was like a heat thing, do you guys just smash the window?
In a worst case scenario, yes.
Would you try to like jimmy it, or? So
we are all trained in how to bypass a vehicle's locks and security systems. It's a special license. I can only legally do it at work. So any of my friends watching this, do not ask me to do it outside of work. So we're trained to do it. Yeah, there's ways to get past it. Right. And that's where that skill component comes into play, of being able to do it quickly in that stressful environment. Biggest thing I can kind of talk about there is just calm the mom down, calm the parents down. If the parents are calm, the baby's going to be calm. Right. If the parents are freaking out, not a good situation. So just, it's that being able to show up, be that calm voice of like, hey, don't worry, I got you, everything's going to be okay. That alone is one of my biggest loves about the job, is about helping people. Right. Yeah. Like with that, it is, it's probably really rewarding, especially to just like get people like, hey, let me just like get you out of the way type thing. My girlfriend told me to ask this question. Is there a temperature like, is it ever too cold that you guys would stop service? The battery guys will stop doing battery installs below a certain temperature, just because it's a very like high dexterity job when you're taking screws out, you're pulling
And
batteries.
it can't be like no gloves on.
Exactly. So
Right.
like
It's like a health risk.
Exactly. I think that is minus 20 degrees Celsius where we'll cut off and then we'll wait for it to get back warm. But for general towing and light service, there's no temperature cutoff. Biggest thing there is just work smartly, take breaks, either warm up or cool off in the truck when it's really hot. Stay hydrated, stay dressed for the weather.
Yeah. My next question that I just kind of thought of was like, do you think the type of job, like some jobs you look at, it's like you have to kind of be this type of person, or like you have certain people. Have you ever seen like someone that maybe came into the job and just kind of like didn't have like a knack for it, or like they just didn't have like the personality, right? Like it takes a certain type of like person,
it
right?
It really does. Like in my time with AMA, there's been a few people that have come and gone that didn't quite have the right fit. Nothing against them, great folks. But you do have to be a little bit crazy to be willing to lay down on the road to get hooked up to a vehicle when you've got cars whizzing by at
Well,
60 to 100k an hour.
that you bring that up,
So
yeah, AAA, I think that's American
Yep.
American Auto Association, reports 60 tow operators die each year on the job, and in Canada, 67% of roadside assistant calls are handled by CAA, AMA annually. That's crazy.
yeah, within Alberta, I think it was last summer, we actually lost an operator, a different company. I think it was in the Red Deer area, but we did lose one of our, I guess, fellows. It's a dangerous job. You got to keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, and how much of like keeping current now? I have in my later questions about like technology and like how long have you been working there? You might have already
Little over 2 years.
Okay.
We're coming on 2.5.
Right. And even within those 2 years, do you see that there's like somewhat of like this current training where it's like you kind of have to keep up on things, or or the mechanics of it pretty like standard and kind of like outgrown the test of time?
Like there's a little bit of keeping current, especially as more and more cars are going electric and hybrid, and there's more like kind of complexity to the electrics. There's things we have to be aware of and work around, especially when we're installing batteries or we're doing battery boosts, or even just for towing. Like there's a new Cadillac, I think it's called the Lyric EV. Those basically we don't do anything other than tow them because the manufacturer has not approved us to do anything.
Yeah, I was
other
just
than
going to
towing
ask,
it.
like, if you had a Tesla,
Yeah.
what would you do?
Mutter under my breath while getting it done.
Yeah.
Teslas are a pain,
Yeah.
especially like the more controls are tucked away behind a screen and there's no actual buttons and no manual bypasses to get it into neutral, it gets harder and harder to move. So there was a Tesla I did this past winter. The reason we were towing it is they forgot to charge the batteries. So it just ran out of juice. Luckily, I had another truck with me with jumper cables that we could use to charge it, to get it just enough power for me to get it into its tow mode, to get it loaded up. But the whole time I was muttering and cursing and
that
just
sounds so annoying.
just not having a good time.
Yeah, that sounds. Now, is there a specific brand that is there a specific brand of vehicle that you would say are like the hardest or like have the most complications? And this might be like a two-pronged question.
Okay.
A, for you,
Yeah.
and what have you seen the most of in terms of like broken down vehicles?
Okay. So the hardest vehicles to tow usually seem to be the higher end brands, honestly, like BMWs, Mercedes.
Because like safety features?
Safety features, but especially as vehicles have been getting newer, they have more controls over even just the vehicle going into neutral. There's a lot of cars out there that it won't stay in neutral unless you're in the car, in the driver's seat, with the door closed and the seat belt on.
So with telling you're in the driver's seat, what is that? A weight sensor?
I would assume that it's a weight sensor. I would assume
Right.
there's a seatbelt sensor. I'm assuming a sensor that have make sure the door is shut, so it's not just going to roll away and potentially hit something and tear the door off.
So when you go through training, is there a and we'll get back to the other question, but when you're training, is there a prerequisite before you get hired on and do in-house training? And second question, how much car mechanical knowledge do you guys are given? Like, how much do you actually have to know, right?
Okay, so to get in, there's no actual formal requirement to have any actual experience.
Like, you don't have to be a mechanic.
You don't have to be a mechanic. It's one of those things where the more mechanical aptitude and knowledge of cars, it's 100% an asset.
Right.
It's not a requirement, but it certainly helps, and it will make you look better when you're out there doing the calls, because then you can kind of have a little bit more leeway to be like, well, I actually know what this problem is.
Right.
It's a quick, easy fix.
Right.
Just, tighten the clamps
And I'm
on the
sure
battery and away
with
you go.
time, you get that.
Exactly.
You get that over time,
Yeah.
but sometimes a certain, say if it was a certain agency, they'd be like, you know what, we're trying to keep this type of standard or whatever it is. So you got to know about this. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So it certainly helps. You pick up a lot on the job. The way that I was trained isn't how we're doing training anymore. It's actually been stretched out a lot longer. So you've got more time to kind of get familiar with each step.
Always good.
The other thing with what we do, we're not the ones that are meant to be fixing it. We're there to get it to the next step. So if I can do the quick, easy things and save somebody the tow, great. I call it a win in my book. That being said, I'm not a Red Seal mechanic. I'm not going to go out on my own and say, I can fix your car. Because then if I do something wrong or if it doesn't fix it, they can say, well, Dave has said that he fixed your car. And
now they're going to sue you.
Now I'm on the hook.
And what I just was thinking was, with more experience on the person comes more liability, because now they're going to try all types of freaky shit to try to fix your Oh, I know this trade secret, blah, 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 blah. And then next thing you know, the battery explodes. And they're like, yo, AMA, what the fuck, dude?
Yep.
What the fuck,
So
man?
it's definitely a balance between wanting to help the person, but not overstepping my training, my scope, and what I should do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an interesting balance, because say for instance there is I could tow this person, but there is a way that I could get them to the gas station on their own. It's kind of I kind of have to lean on the side of I'm going to tow the person to keep my job. And because if this goes south, I'm not going to be able to explain this.
Yeah. So I don't really have to worry about a situation like that in particular. And one of the things that I do when I'm out there helping people out is I try to put aside what's the best solution for me, because I'm not the one that put the call in. I'm not the one that needs the help. It's not about me. It's about the other person. I'm there to help them, so I'm going to do what I can to get the best end result for them, so long as it falls within what I'm knowledgeable in, what I'm allowed to do, and what's reasonable. So there's been a number of times where I've been able to do just the quick fixes and get somebody back on the road and not have to tow them. And that's ultimately better for the member. Would I have made a little bit more by just saying, well, this sucks, let's tow it, let's get you to the shop? Yes, but that's not what is important to me. It's getting that person back on the road under their own steam, so that they can have that autonomy to say, hey, I have some other stuff. I can kind of limp my car through that, and then I can take it to the shop at my own time, at my own pace. That to me is more important than getting it there as quickly as possible. Wherever possible.
Right. And have you ever like experienced a time where like a customer tried to like dupe you, or like a member tried, you know what I mean, where like they called into one garage but then they ask you to go to another? Or is like the transparency kind of pretty straightforward?
It's pretty straightforward
Because they just won't dispatch you if if they were trying to do some shady stuff, or
like the shadiness is really kind of just people trying to use other people's memberships,
Right.
which is a really easy thing to kind of work around, because you just ask them like, when I roll up on a call, I verify the proof of membership and ID. It's got to match what I've got on my phone. As long as it matches, cool.
we're good to go.
We're good to go. Because the way that the membership works is that it's to the individual, it's not to the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I've got a membership, and the membership I've got is like the top end RV. It's Premier RV or something. So basically, no matter what kind of vehicle I'm driving, I've got coverage.
Right.
And even if I'm just riding shotgun in somebody else's car and they have a breakdown, since I was there at the time of breakdown, I can use my membership to get their vehicle towed. Where it becomes tricky is people will say, well, I want to use my membership. And I ask, well, were you there? And they say, no. Like,
right. Someone
okay,
calls
well,
them like, hey, can you give me your membership number?
Exactly.
I broke down. And they're like, yeah. And then they're in Ohio somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, dude, I can't. I can't help you, man.
Yeah, like there's a little bit of leeway there, where sometimes if the membership I've got on the call is the husband, but it's the wife that was broken down, and she's got her own membership, and they're at the same level, I'll just take it at face value. I'm like, well, I've still got proof of membership from one person. It's valid. I'm on the side of the Hyundai. I'm not going to call my dispatcher like, hey, can you switch which membership it's on?
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm going to be focused on getting things loaded up, getting everybody out of there so it can be as safe as possible.
And in terms of working with like external agencies, how does that look for you guys? Is that more taken on by private contractors?
It is, yeah.
So you guys don't do anything, like not even in the case of an emergency? Like how would that, if someone got in an accident but they had AMA, could they call AMA instead of getting it towed by the private?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
What about if it's DUI?
So we don't do anything that is either criminal or punitive. So we don't do DUIs, we don't do impounds, we don't do parking tickets, we don't do repos. We are 100% about member service. We very occasionally do calls for non-members. It's pretty few and far between because we have to prioritize our members first.
Right.
So.
And you do until AMA gets a fat, juicy contract or something. And then it's like, hey, everything changes once. Like it is interesting because it's like, right now, and I'm sure for a long term in the future, but sometimes you have these like organizations and then like they're like, hey, we want you to take on like this, and it's like, oh well, like we might have to stretch ourselves a little thin. Yeah, we'll give you $10 million. All right, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Right.
So with AMA being a private company, it's not a crown corporation.
Right.
We can be pretty focused on only doing the things that we want to do. And this is like way above.
And the thing is, it's for obvious reasons to see like the growth and stuff like that it's probably way more lucrative. So it's like, why would we dabble in this when like you got like AMA as I'm surely sustaining themselves enough of membership fees.
Yeah. Well, and that's honestly where AMA makes the most money is by selling the memberships.
Right.
On a regular basis, I'll get calls for people, and then in 20 years I've never put a call in. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. And for a lot of people, that's a very common thing.
It's like you'd rather have it than need it than to need it.
Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Yep.
Yeah.
So even just as like an insurance policy, a lot of people will get a membership for that rainy day just in case.
Oh, does it lower your premiums?
Not that I'm aware of.
I know it gets you fat discounts places.
It does, yeah.
So that's always nice. I got a discount with my tires.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you see like a lot of people like, do they, how do I say this? Because I don't want to like, when I ask these type of questions, I never want to like throw shade on someone or put someone in a weird way. But you always like ask yourself like, am I doing more than like the general person? Like, say you come on, you're a nice dude, you're this, you're that. Let me help you out. Let me like take the extra mile. Do you think that like the payoff from AMA is like consistent with like how you operate at work? Or do you think that like you just have like a good perspective?
Like payoff financially
or like in terms of employee benefits through relationship with your employer, like stuff like that. Is like the relationship enough that you're willing to work hard and to like you see that consistent across everybody you're working with?
For the most part, yes. Like I've worked harder jobs for lesser pay. The
100%
getting out there to genuinely help people out and have a direct impact over the remainder of the day. I can't have any impact over what happened before I got involved, but at the very least, I can show up, I can help them out in that moment, be like, hey, you know, it sucks that your car broken down. It's beyond what I know how to fix right here, right now, but I can get it to the next guy who can be the one to fix it, and I can get it there quickly and safely. And to me, that's a huge reward. It's actually been very beneficial for my mental health, despite all the dangers and the stresses of the job. Just seeing that gratitude of people and it not even costing, like I don't even have to charge people money.
Yeah, it's not like you're not doing like a greasy, you don't feel like, because what I tried to think about is initially, and then when I thought about AMA, it all clicked in. But initially, I'm like, I don't know if because I used to do like parking enforcement.
Okay, yeah.
And I fucking hated it. Like I hated writing people tickets, and like I would go, but some of the people I worked with, they took advantage of it and became like this, like. Ulterior thing where it was like, how many tickets can we write in this area, and I'm gonna be like the record holder in this, and like shit like that. Or you get the other way where people don't write any tickets because they're super jaded and they hate the idea of it. I kind of wrote in the middle where I'm like, yo, the average day person, I'm not gonna like be a predator over their like parking meter. But like you had cases where like a dude's driving the wrong way on a one way on the curb, and you're like, dude, what do you want? Like, what do you want me to do?
So, right? Fun fact. I was doing a drop. This is very early into my time with AMA. I was dropping a car off at a shop, and I had it facing the wrong direction, which the car got a ticket, which I didn't even realize you could get a ticket for being parked the wrong way. So,
right. Yeah.
Learning experience.
Yeah. And but like we also, on the other side of it, you had like people that were in parking enforcement trying to like give tickets to like a Brinks truck. And you're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, this guy's going to shoot you.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, he doesn't know if you're trying, like, he doesn't know what you're doing. You're just climbing on the top of a giant Brinks truck trying to put the ticket in their windshield. It's like, oh.
Bold choice.
You know, or like, I remember so many stories, like, dudes would, like if it rained, they would just go into the public library and like fuck around all day, because like the public library was like 7 floors. So if it was pissing rain, so then they had to implement like, well, you got to write something, man. Like you gotta, but then people would go to court and they'd write like stupid tickets where they're, and some guys were clever where like the person would write a ticket, they wouldn't realize that like, say if it said 30-minute parking, but a tree branch covered the thing, they would go and say, Your Honor, I didn't see the sign. This guy said sign FM, front of motor vehicle, or whatever it is. And then they look, he takes a picture and he's like, well, the sign was... And, you know, so it's very weird on that balance. And like, given the fact that like your job kind of has a lot of regulations and policies, do you see kind of this like juxting of like going back and forth where it's like, well, I can do this, but under this rule, but according to this down here and this?
Yeah. like there's definitely a balance to be made. The majority of the policies and the rules are going to be safety oriented, not taking risks with the members' vehicles, with your safety, with their safety, the safety of the general motoring public. So it's mostly just trying to be safe, not taking advantage of like the goodwill of AMA as a corporate organization as a whole,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Like, you don't take advantage or you try to write shit off or like do shady shit where it's like it just it's bad morally. For me, like when I think of that type of stuff, like people like to fuck over companies and this guy and whatever it is, but it's like it's not really about that for me. It's like I don't like the person I look at, right? Like, so that's what's stopping me. It's like I really could care less about whatever I'm like, in turn, like that guy's making enough money, he can take his 5%, go get, he's going to be all right. It's like, but for me, it's like I got to be my own best friend and be able to like be okay. Right.
Like there's a lot of times where if a little bit of extra distance is just past what their member coverage is, and this is really only for the folks with the basic levels because you only get 5, which is a holdover from how AAA had it set up initially, where the basic coverage is, I think, like 1 mile. It's probably like 3 these days, but the joke is it was your basic covers 1 mile, and then the next level up covers 100. So it's a big step up.
It's huge. It's 100 times.
Yeah. So for folks that are nice, and it's only a couple extra kilometers. Like I'll more often than not just be like, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. Yeah. It's not worth my time to jump through the.
But
apps.
if the dude has it and it's basic and it's 200 kilometers, you're like, no, dude. Like,
like all of us. Like some of my coworkers will have kind of different amounts. That's their cutoff line for when they will charge and when they won't. I look at the context of the situation. I look at how long the member's been waiting, their kind of luck with their car, and just ask other questions about how their life is going. Not in like a judgmental way, but just kind of like getting an overall situation to see like, okay, this person really could use that extra help, so I'm going to give it to them.
And what type do you consider to like, because in my job, I have to have like a lot of self-awareness that like I don't think people consider, and it's really interesting because like what I like neglected to think of like is that situational awareness, right? Where like you have to go in and say, well, I have to understand what type of feedback I might get back if I do this, or like what's the situation at and how can I like be like water and move within it, right? Or like be the most like, hey, I'm just trying to play the middleman. Like like for my case, it's like, yo, I didn't put you here, so I don't know. I'm just to make sure you're okay, right? Like, and it's really interesting because I think that type of like relationship, a lot of people, they don't realize how much that like develops your self-awareness like outside of work. And that kind of leads me into my next question, where it's like how much like situational awareness like do you think you have, and was that like developed through work, or do you think you were always like an introspective person?
Probably a little bit of both. Like I've always been somewhat introverted, very much aware of kind of what's going on. Like even when I'm hanging out with friends and bigger parties, I tend to kind of just be on the perimeter, hanging back, just enjoying the vibe and just like observing. Definitely at work, there's a lot of situational awareness just for safety's sake. You got to keep your head on swivel, especially where you're working, side of the Henday, any high speed or high traffic zones. But also potentially doing a pickup or drop off very early in the morning or late at night in certain areas of the city. You got to be safe. So there's definitely a lot of just being aware of your surroundings but then also taking that little bit deeper look into the people that you're actually interacting with and looking for those little clues for how their day is going, so I can help kind of tailor my approach to how I interact with them, so that I can ideally create the best situation for
everybody involved.
Yeah.
I don't want to do like a whole leap back, but I think this adds like a good kind of part to like what initially do you think like got you involved with like AMA, tow truck driving, that kind of stuff?
So I was at the Alberta Outdoor Adventure Expo, and I was unemployed in a gap between jobs, and I was thinking about what I like to do, and I kind of went down a list. I like driving, I like listening to music, I like being outside, and I like helping people. So I was kind of looking for a job that ticks all those boxes.
Right.
So I was thinking, it's like, well, tow truck drivers do basically all of that. They drive around, they help people out, and when they're driving around, they got, fresh air and sunshine and tunes bumping. So from there, it was a pretty easy, okay, well, what's the biggest name in towing in Alberta? AMA. Through an application, and here I am.
And is it an American company that came to Canada, or is it under AAA or is it under CAA?
So AAA is what started it, and then CAA is the Canadian Automotive Association, and then under CAA you've got BCAA, which is BC, you've got AMA, which is Alberta. I think there's one in Ontario. It's OAA, OMA or something.
OMA.
Not sure. I'm not from Ontario.
Yeah, Ontario. I have a lot of friends that are from Ontario, and it's so funny.
But so it started from AAA, and then kind of you got the different levels as it trickles down.
15,000 tow truck drivers. What is the actual like definition term of like the role?
So my job title
service vehicle operator.
Is a service vehicle operator.
Service vehicle operator. I'm glad I got that right. When you got the job, what was the type of training like? Do you felt like it was like sufficient enough? Do you felt like you weren't like thrown into the wolves?
Well, I mean, I was kind of from the frying pan to the fire. So,
but some jobs are just like that. You're not going to get the experience till you're actually there.
Exactly.
It's like you can prepare for war, but until you go to war, it's like you're not really.
Well, and the way that I was trained was even more in depth than the way people had been getting trained in towing for decades before me. So, it used to be you got 3 days in the truck, and it's like, okay, cool, pat on the back, away you go. That's the old timers. The way that I got trained is we did a solid month in a standard tow truck, what we call a wrecker. And then after that, there's an evaluation where you head out with the head trainer. If you pass, cool, they cut you loose. So I did that, got cut loose. That was end of November of 2022, so just at the start of winter. I had 2 weeks of gentle winter, and then we got just hammered with snow, and we got stupid busy. So it was out of training into winter, into our extreme operating procedures where it's just go.
And there's no build up.
There's no build up.
There's no build up.
It was definitely baptism by fire, but I made it through. Yeah. And after that first winter, I kind of looked at it and said, you know what, if I can hack it through winter, I can hack it through summer. And if I can hack it for a year, I can hack it for more.
Yeah. And as well, I think the human person is very, like, once they find something, they're able to kind of be like, yeah, I can do it, and I can kind of enjoy doing it, or at least like there's somewhat of a payoff that's like, yeah, I can fuck with this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the job itself is just fun. Yeah. Honestly,
it's different. Like, I've worked a lot of mundane jobs, and I'm not going to say my job is like the most, but like the takeaways from it of what you actually get. And this is what people, when I say like emotional maturity, like people who don't have emotional maturity, they just don't get the benefit of like, yo, you can make money, yes, but you can also like start to learn. It's like, okay, at one part of your job, you probably worked on one Tesla, then you had to work on 20. And then it's like, okay, I have to make a decision. Do I learn about Teslas and find out what the fuck's going on to better serve my job, or do I not? Right?
Yeah.
Where then it's like you want to grow and adapt, and like, but some people, they just go like, I don't care. I'm just going to do it the way I'm doing it. And if people don't like it, flip them the bird, right? And I think that comes with a level of just like kind of staying humble and be like, hey, do you know what's going on? Okay, can you just like, I got a couple questions, right? You know what I mean? Like, and it's, I think it's interesting because with every single job, you see that. Like, it's not exclusive to any type of job.
No.
Like, even when I was a produce clerk at Sobeys, my manager, you could tell that he fucked with being a produce manager. He would tell you how to like rehydrate vegetables. Now, he wasn't the best manager, but in terms of knowing his shit and getting to like the level or whatever he wanted to do, it was like he kind of knew what was going on, and like certain apples and this and that, right? Where it's like, well, that's a choice, right? So it's very interesting. Like, you can either decide to like dive in and like say, oh, I fuck with this, and like this is all the shit I like to do, and I can gain more knowledge. Someone called me intrinsic like a few months ago, and I like actually took it as an insult. And so for a couple days, I was like, yo, man, does that mean I talk too much? Does that mean I fucking do this? But it's like some people genuinely just like are interested, right? Where it's like, oh, what the fuck's going on, right? So, yeah. And that's kind of like, I don't know. I have so many questions, like just even talking to you for the 40 minutes, right? But kind of what my next thing is, like, how are your like coworker relations? Do you find there's a big age gap between like when you started and when a lot of people in this career, is there like a bubble where like you see like a hard demographic in like the 50s and then there's like a few outliers in their 30s or whatever it is, and then you got one dude that started at 19 or whatever?
Like, we've got a range of ages for all the guys on the fleet. We've got a few guys that are in their 50s that are getting close to retirement, which when they do, it'll be a sad day for the rest of us because they've got more experience towing than I have years on this planet. So like there's a couple of them that'll, like, every once in a while I'm doing a tow on like something from the 80s or the 70s, and I'll ask them like, hey, you know, I'm towing, you know, an 89 Ram Charger, you know, any tips and tricks for, you know, how to get it loaded safely? Because when it gets to that kind of age range of vehicles, like, that's where they got their most experience, and B, it'll be kind of cool, and it's a way to learn and keep that knowledge kind of going, rather than just not recognizing it and not appreciating it and not benefiting from it while you still can. These guys aren't going to be around forever.
And what do you see for like your career progression? Like, do you like how do you see yourself, like, given your first 2 years, like how do you see your growth and like what you're actually trying to do? And is there a lot of branches, or is it kind of like very narrow of like this goes to this, goes to this, or is it kind of like you can move around? So
within AMA, in the roadside branch, it's fairly narrow, where you can start in one vehicle and then eventually you can get cross-trained in all three, and then from there there's not a whole lot of progression beyond that, where you could get onto the training team, you could get to be a supervisor at some point. There is opportunities within AMA if you want to jump over to like different kind of sectors within the business. But within like the towing industry itself, there's a lot of stuff that AMA just doesn't do. So if you wanted to learn that, you basically have to go somewhere else. Like, we've got contractors for all the heavy stuff. Like, if you got a big RV or a really big trailer or motorcycles, anything that really requires specialized equipment, generally going to be handled by a contractor.
Do other companies try to like poach dudes? Do you see that at all? Like people reaching out and being like, "Hey, you should come work for fucking J&B
I haven't seen
for Bob Towing or whatever."
I haven't seen anything like that myself, but we've had people come over from other tow companies. I'm sure we've had guys go from us to other tow companies. It's a fairly narrow industry when like we're all doing the same thing, and like everybody kind of knows everybody.
Right.
So, but
yeah, I guess like the community's kind of small.
Yeah.
And trying to think if there's anything else, because I want to get into like also like how do you balance this with like your personal life? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how does one make sure that they don't consume enough of their workplace that it becomes like their identity? And like I think depending on the job, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, depending on how much work you have to dedicate or how much knowledge you have to learn. So I kind of interested to know of like, what does that balance look like? Is it very easy to detach and you're kind of like, once I'm off the clock? Like I worked a job where I was available. I was a scheduling manager. So my job was to make sure that like, I worked for a security company and we responded to bank alarms. So all of our staff was on like an on-call basis. They were like retired military, police, and they would just go to an RBC, check to make sure nothing was broken, reset the alarm, go home. They get like $45. They do like 5 a week, whatever happens, right? Sometimes it's once a month. So with that, sometimes you call, they don't answer.
Yep.
And then you're like, well, this is the only fucking guy I got. So then they call outside of that. But now I'm getting shit on if I get like, so now there's like no way that I'm ever able to detach. Because like, there's always an emergency of what's going on. And now with like my current job, I see a lot of people that they can't detach because it's like a social thing where it's like they can't get out of side of that like group of friends or that like demographic where it's like no one understands me, right? So like I see it on two different levels of like one's like a work related thing where it's like I always have shit I got to do, and then another is where it's like no, it's just like my job's so niche that like nobody really like, and I just don't really fuck with people.
Yeah, like for me, it's relatively easy to kind of detach from work because I do a 4 days on, 4 days off rotation. So it's a super nice balance between
like
work and life.
8 to 5?
8 to 8, basically.
8 to 8. Okay.
So on my days off, my work phone is off. If people really need to get a hold of me, they can through my personal. But generally speaking, I'm not getting called on my days off. And even on my work days when I go home, that's just, cook a meal, relax, and then head to bed. But even like kind of touching the social aspect of it, what I do on a daily basis is not really that far out of what the things that I would do normally. Like I like to go four-wheeling. Like I went with Bob last weekend. Great time. Almost rolled it.
Yeah.
That was come on, Bob.
Yeah.
But like there's like even how I have my personal vehicle set up. Like I've got a bunch of towing and recovery gear in my truck, not for if I get stuck, but if I'm going down the highway, coming back from a ski trip and I see someone in the ditch and we're like 2 to 3 hours from anywhere, I'm going to stop. I'm going to help them out because that's A, what I do for work. B, there's that little bit of karma where, if I was in the same situation, I'd hope someone would come give me a hand. So, but also it's just that sense of community and just, helping people out.
It's just morally the right thing to do.
And like it's all so interconnected that I kind of feel like I'm rambling. It's like, oh, it's this thing and that thing and these things too. But
it's the idea where it's like you have this type of stuff and it almost becomes a sort of like in every certain job, it kind of becomes an identity, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like you can tell, like I said before we started recording, like besides wearing an AMA hat and an AMA shirt, stereotypically, I could look at you and say, you match the theme of what I would picture in my head.
Yeah.
As someone who works for AMA or a tow truck driver
Yeah.
or, something like that, right? Where it's, and like, I feel like it's crazy and it's a huge paradox because I don't look like someone that would work in my field, if that's fair, right?
I mean, like me personally, I try really hard not to
Stereotype.
not judge a book by its cover.
Like when I told one of my teachers when I wanted to apply for RCMP, this was her first response. Don't they have a height requirement? And you're like, whoa. And just lifelong insecurities after that.
Yeah.
No, but it's one of those things where like some people kind of like they make it a part of their life. And not only that, you had a lot of those like traits beforehand, right?
Time,
Where there was some things that I had like my communication and this and that, but then like the side of like being physical with people and like having that like type of whatchamacallit, like physical handling and stuff like that. It was something I had to learn when I got there.
Yeah.
But it was like I had half of it and then I kind of learned the rest, right? And you see it on the other side of things where people don't have good communication, but they're beasts. And you're like, oh, if I can get you to be smarter, you're going to be great. But if you don't, it doesn't matter how strong you are or how great you are. If you can't communicate,
Correct.
you're shit, right?
Well, especially in a job like law enforcement, you need to be able to talk to people.
Yeah. But when you look at it in today's day and age, like, and not to get too like political or anything, but like you see now that like the elections are ramping up, like even when I was saying I was in Emerge, like we're there and we were out of one of the rooms and then they put us in like a secondary.
Yep.
You could tell this was like a dialysis thing.
Yep.
Like they all had the little lazy boy chairs with like and we're sitting there. It's all covered off with curtains, but you can just hear this old lady and she won't shut the fuck up about like, oh, this and the money. And you just want to open the curtains and be like, yo, you think this is what I want to fucking hear? Like, so in today's day and age, it's kind of interesting because it's like people are more sensitive than ever. So it's like the level of like kind of empathy or apathy or whatever it is, you kind of have to have. Because people aren't as easygoing. People are like, some people are just more difficult to manage, and it may be due to like mental illness, addiction, whatever it is. Maybe they have trauma, whatever. But it's like some people recognize that they kind of have to do that, and then other people like they do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and like kind of circling back to the biggest complaint we get about wait times. Some people are more reasonable about it than others. There's been times where I've explained to people like, hey, sorry it took me so long. We've been getting absolutely slammed with, maybe a bad spot on the Henday where just, 5, 6, 7, 8 different cars are all getting into the ditch. Maybe we have a whole bunch of different collisions that we're cleaning up. Like, it takes time. But like, I'm here now. What can I do to help you out? And they're like, well, I'm really unhappy about the wait times. Like, that's beyond my control. But again, it kind of comes to that empathy component of looking at, okay, how's their day going? What's their lived experience? How is that affecting how they're interacting with me? How can I kind of help steer things back in the right direction? And for some people, there's nothing you can do that will ever make them happy. And there's a level of compartmentalization with that as well. But like, hey, I've done everything I can. There's nothing I can do to resolve this situation. That's where I'll get a supervisor involved. It's like, okay, not my problem.
And it's interesting to say that balancing. Because how much do you kind of recognize there's a level of like detachment where kind of you have to be just like you said. And it's like you have to recognize like, this is totally out of my control. There's nothing that I'm going to do to either benefit. Like I'm not even able, I'm a cog and I just don't fit in this situation. Like there's other people that I could get involved or collaborate with that would be better suited to help you out, either personally or like business wise. We just aren't on the same page. And like, hey, I can remove myself professionally
Yeah.
and like emotionally, where it's like I'm not hankering like a vengeance or like I want some sort of like vendetta against you, or like I hope my supervisor tells you exactly what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You know, like and I
Yeah.
think that again comes into like when we talk about mental well-being, where there's some sort of job. And again, I think if you burrow down to a deep enough level, you can find characteristics that match with any possible profession on the planet. Like some are harder than others, but what's hard?
Yeah.
If a guy's a fucking guy that plunges or like sucks up porta potty shit, but he loves doing it, I would be throwing my guts. So there's just, you know what I mean? But maybe he wants to test the fucking different type of vacuums and the truck and the, you know, maybe there's different versions of porta potties that this guy has to get in deep research where you're like, okay, he's figured it out, man. Good for you. Right? Like, so you burrow down enough. Everybody has the same type of shit going on. And that's not to minimize anything, but like in just a generalization, like, you know, we can kind of agree on that where it's like you know what I mean? Like you kind of just have to find a way to like emotionally detach and not like carry on with like a client, customer, whatever person you're working with, whatever relationship you have. Maybe it's a coworker relationship and you got to make sure, oh, well, I can't hate this guy when I come back tomorrow because A, it's going to affect me when I go home, and B, it might affect me professionally. Like what if I like decide to like fuck around and not like help this guy when he needs help? Like, what am I gonna do, right?
And like one of the things that I've worked on over the years and just kind of general mental well-being is understanding that I want to help people as much as I can. There's certain people that I don't have the ability to help. That's not a bad reflection on me. It's not a bad reflection on them. It's just the reality of the situation. I'm not the right person for that situation. And I don't need to take ownership of other people's stuff and make it my own. It doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve them, and it just makes a bad situation worse. So it's getting better at that, recognizing where each kind of boundary is, and then using that to help guide making decisions on when, you know, supervisors need to be involved, you know, maybe other resources. And it's getting more emotionally mature as I'm getting older.
Yeah.
And just kind of being more aware of myself, aware of others, and like a deeper understanding of all of the above.
And when, like, because you said a lot of like your personal traits, like kind of they match. So now what does like your outside of life hobbies look like, where like they do match, but there's a level of enjoyment where one's for money and like doing it, and then the other's for like pure enjoyment, right? So like what does that like other half of your life look like?
So other half is a lot of time spent outdoors, like when we went wheeling with Bob.
Right.
I was surprised that we only needed to winch through one spot, but that's kind of where the personal and the professional really meet. It's funny, on other wheeling trips I've been on, people have gotten stuck and made the joke of, well, Davis is around, he'll help me out.
Yeah, no problem.
Like,
I can fuck around. Yeah.
No, I'll tell you what not to do, and I'll tell you how to hook it up.
Right.
But you're doing it on your own because you got stuck on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not playing that game. But like getting outdoors, whether it's camping, it's hiking, it's mountain biking. I'd love to get into kayaking at some point. Just
and do you do a lot of like wilderness, like say camping? Is it camping like camping, or is it camping like wilderness cooking, stuff like that?
Try to get as
deep as you can.
Like I do a lot of Crownland stuff, so it's still kind of vehicle based.
But it's also like opportunities, right? Like you can't always be like, I'm gonna go on a 14-day survival camping trip, and it's like, sometimes it's just not realistic, right?
I'm not that gung-ho. It'd be cool to do, a few times just to say like, yes, I know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I like being clean when I'm outdoors. I like having a hot shower. It's a lot of work to get that doing when you head out to the bush with a knife and a bow saw.
Yeah, yeah. And even the job you work, like, I'm a big, like, not like sanitary where I'm wiping everything down, but in terms of, like, bodily cleanliness, like, I don't fuck with being dirty. Yeah. Like it's not Howie Mandel, but it's just below Howie Mandel, where it's like, I'm not gonna shave it, but I don't like getting greasy and I find that affects some of the skills that I want to learn, because it's like I would love to hunt, but it's like then once we start taking organs and I'm smelling the deer's shit and I don't think I'll be able to do it, right? And I've went with friends that did like bear baiting, right? And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then we started like seeing bears, and I'm like, nah, I'm all right. Like that's good, because like I maybe even just killing them, I'll probably throw up afterwards, because it's just like the level of adrenaline and my heart rate's so high. I'll just like power puke somewhere. But respect to people that like, I like doing the camping, but like mild. Like I'm not a big like, yo, let's go out and be like, you know, cavemen. Like I'm not trying, but I do enjoy it with the people that know what they're doing. Yeah. I can experience it with someone, but not like, it's not something where I'm like, I'm gonna go hunt a bear. Like, and I know everything. I got my trail cams, I got my bait, I got this, I got my deer stand, like whatever it is, right?
Yeah, like the way that I like to do it is just get a group of guys together. We all go out onto Crown Land and maybe do some of the trails out there and come back to base camp and then have a good fire, you know, good meal with some good drinks and just make good memories.
Right. So. And when you, so in terms of like your relation to Bob, like was it through military?
Nope. So funny story there. I actually made friends with Bob based off of a Facebook marketplace deal. And we stayed in touch after that, and the friendship grew and blossomed, and it's been awesome. I
spoke to the guy like 2 times, and then after that I was like, this guy's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bob.
Yeah, Bob's cool shit.
Yeah, he's a very awesome, super like just like positive man. Where sometimes I'm like, you don't gotta like. I almost at some point I'm like, is he trying to lie to me? Like it can't be that good. And I'm like, you need to calm down, man. You're making me too happy. Yeah.
No, Bob is good stuff. He's been there for me in some really heavy personal times. Yeah. He helped me make the right decisions and supported me in them, and just thanks, Bob.
And how much how do you have more of like a personal social network than you have a work social network, or is that kind of like a little bit of two?
Like I've got a pretty good network on each side. There's a little bit of crossover from work into personal, but they're relatively separate.
And dating, married, relationships, single,
not in a hurry to find anything.
And do you find that's more work based, or do you find that's more like just you doing you?
Just me doing me. Yeah. It's being single, I think, is one of those things that you need to be comfortable being single, and the more comfortable you can be single, the better footing you have getting into a relationship, because then it gives you a chance to work on yourself, work on your own things without bringing that baggage into the relationship and not being reliant or even just hoping that that other person is going to help you carry that weight, because it's not fair to them and it's not fair to yourself either. Like,
and do you feel like you have like, and again, like if we get too into it, just tell me, like, do you feel like relatively speaking, you have like a high self-esteem? Like in terms of like how you kind of view yourself and like your self-awareness, like
for the most part, growing up watching Monty Python and a lot of other British humor, it's very dry, very self-deprecating, very sarcastic, which definitely filtered my sense of humor growing up as a kid, and especially as I've gotten older as an adult. I like who I am. There's things I need to work on. I think that's the case for most everybody. And it's staying humble.
Yeah.
So
that's a big thing I always try to say. Like I always tell people, like, you got to come down and touch grass a bit. Like you got to you got to just understand, like, and sometimes like I come off as like very rude and like crass, but it's like sometimes you got to look to self and be like, who the fuck are you? Like if I was, and then but it can even go like above that where it's like, who the fuck is anybody? Like what the fuck's going on, right? So
like life is serious and it isn't in the same breath.
Yes.
Like you gotta be taking the important stuff seriously, and everything that's not important, like relax, take a breath. It's not that complicated.
And with a structured plan, like most things can get okay, let's just do a quick flow chart. If I do this, what's going to happen? If I do this, what's going to happen? Okay, if I do this is going to, or this, you know what I mean? And then you just break it down where it's like, okay, all you got to do is just remain calm and just get to the, and sometimes I'm my own worst enemy where it's like, sometimes like, you know, where I could have like calmed the situation down. I might have stirred the pot, or I might have zigged when I should have zagged. But like, again, it's the idea of like the humbleness of like being able to understand like, oh, that wasn't the right call, or like, I should have done that instead of that. But it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to do my best to not like make these mistakes again.
And it's the emotional maturity to put away the id and the ego to be like, hey, those might make my inner 7-year-old feel really great in the moment, but they're going to make my current adult self very unhappy because of the consequences of that knee-jerk, whatever jab remark is going to be. And
it's interesting you say that. I interviewed an author. He was a former corrections officer, military member, and he's saying during the interview, he was like, an event is just an event. It's not a bad event. It's not a good. It all depends on how you interpret that event, because someone can walk into it one day, and he's like, that's how you have to, like, the event's just the event, right? So, and it was very interesting to hear that, because it kind of, it separates you from what actually is going on, and like, well, I can choose to feel like my own way about this. I can choose to like find a way to like make this the least griefful as possible, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's interesting. And I look at people that kind of, I see that they're like, that's not on their mind. And sometimes like, and I don't know about you, but like sometimes how much of that where you're like, man, if you only just tried this, you'd be a lot happier. Yeah. And then they just go off and do whatever. And then again, with that like disconnect where you're like, hey, I can still kind of be your friend and not like try to be a mentor or like someone that's like preaching gospel, where it's like, I never want to feel like I'm patronizing people. Even though I'm positive, I don't want it to come off as like, yeah, I'm just in a better situation, man. I love my life and everything's going great. And they're going through like a huge tragic event. And like, you're so disconnected that it comes off as like, oh, you have like no grasp. Like if this was in your backyard, you'd be tripping the fuck out too. Right? Like, so.
Yeah. And it's being aware of what other people are going through and filtering that through your own experiences to be like, hey, maybe that situation isn't something you've ever been through. So you can't truly empathize with them, but you can still sympathize.
Yes.
It's an important distinction to make.
Right. Because, yeah, exactly. And like, it kind of leads us back to like what you're doing for work, where it's like, listen, if I had a flat in the middle of the Henday, I'd be just as pissed off as you are. Right. So, you know, like you have to have that ability to just be like, listen, I'm not going through what you're dealing with and this is my job. And like, I really don't care that you have a flat tire, but I can understand that you're pissed off about it. You are just one of my calls that I it's my job to do it. I love to do it. I've trained myself. I'm competent in doing it, but like, I'm not reacting the way I'm reacting because I'm dismissing you. I'm just reacting because my experience is just totally different than yours. And yes, you're valid in being pissed off, and let's do it. Right. Like, that's what I say to people all the time, even with my work, is like, dude, I'm sure if I was here, I haven't made the life decisions to be in the position that you're in.
Yeah.
But I can somewhat be like, this must be somewhat frustrating. Right? So yeah, it's very interesting, because at the same time, it's like, I also want to drive down the highway, listen to my Spotify. Like, you think I want to be towing your fucking vehicle, lady? You know what I mean? Like, it is my job.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those things where you kind of have that ability to be like, yeah, when it's time to turn it on, you turn it on. When it's time to sit and chill, you sit and chill. When you got to flex the expertise, you do that. Couple things just to kind of wrap this whole thing up. I think we've had a great conversation. What are, like, if you weren't doing if you weren't doing AMA, what would be like another profession that you thought about doing?
So I have thought about doing law enforcement at length. There's a lot of things where I don't think that's the right fit for me, just with the way that the systems work in terms of the judicial, the correctional, how things are handled. I think would be very damaging to my mental health, be very frustrating seeing the revolving door. Yeah. There's still that itch that scratches at the back of my mind that says, hey, you know, you're doing great helping people right now, but you could still do something more.
Now, with that, would it be, now what would be, do you think the gain is more of like emotional, like what, or is it, because like some people, like I have a friend of mine that I worked with, and he went and he got like a job doing like all this different stuff, and he had a degree in this, and then he got on with sheriffs and he's doing that, and and then he's going to Vancouver. It's like, yo, when is enough?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so what is that itch for you? Like, what are you trying to scratch? And like, how do you feel like that end goal is going to look? Like, even if you get there, is it like, oh, well, here can get me to here, and here can get, and then if I have this, like, you know, so is that something you recognize? It
is. And there's definitely a level of being aware of having a hero complex. Personally, I think
that's interesting. Hero complex.
Yeah. People that want to be heroes are probably not the ones that should be put in positions where they're in high stress. And like you see it with the firefighters that are arsonists on the side, because they have that, well, I get to show up and be the hero, so I'm going to create the situation that allows me to be that hero. I don't think I would ever do that, but it's just being aware of that. And I think there's a divide, because I think that on one hand, 100%, there are those dudes that like they thrive off of it, and it's like it's like a venom, where it's like, dude, what's wrong with you, man? Like, you're just looking at them and you're being like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, it's so weird. But then on the other side, like, there are a lot of people that are in like multiple agencies that have this idea of like short-term pain, long-term gain. He's going to tell me to fuck off today, but eventually it's going to be fine. Right? Like, eventually, and whether or not this guy long-term figures it out, I'm doing my best, because like I'm lending him an ear, and like I'm allowing him to get shit off his chest and stuff like that. But I'm not being like, yeah, you're not guilty, like this and that, you know what I mean? I'm not doing that, but I'm at least like offering the olive branch to be like, use me for what professionally I'm needed for. Like, you can ask me questions about your like things going on. You can ask me questions about that, and I have no problem explaining things to you the way I'm supposed to. But like, I'm not going to fall into that route. But then what happens is you do that once, and then you're like
everybody wants my advice. I need to tell everybody that they're doing something wrong and how they should learn from me. And it's like, it can get to that point, but there's like a very like strong line of like, oh, you did it. You know what I mean? Like where it's not like, oh, it's like circumstantial. It's like right away. You're like, you went too far. Yeah. Like immediately you fucking just 1 inch and you're like, oh, you motherfucker. Right. But yeah, I think that as long as it's the intention, but as well as like how susceptible you are to like manipulation and across everything, across like, well, what's your relationship with like being respected by others? What's your relationship on like getting special treatment? What's your relationship of looking at as the top 10%, right? Like those type of things fuck with you more of like the performance of your duties because those things carry so much more weight because I can say, oh, well, I fuck with this guy and this guy has a lot of influence. So like, even if I wanted to, I could be like, yo, this guy's giving me shit. And now all of a sudden, every day he comes to work, he's at a new spot. And it's like, for no reason, right? And then this guy over here is doing the exact same job and he's getting tortured, right? So, and it's all about like how well you can manage your ego and how well you can say, oh, this person has a lot to weight to carry. So not because like I want to suck this dude's dick, because I have an understanding that whatever I could say is just not going to be beneficial. So I'm just going to shut the fuck up. I'm going to let this guy say his shit because like at the end of the day, I'm the only one getting punished, right? But some people don't. And then they do it and then they get fucked. And then they're like, why me?
Yeah, like,
why me?
Consequences of action.
Right?
You fucked around, now you
found out. But sometimes it could be in your sense where it's like, well, you didn't use the proper safety precautions. And then the vehicle fell off and you're like.
I mean, knock on wood.
That's
not happened yet.
Right. But then people look back and they go like, stupid car. It must be the fact that it's a Volkswagen, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you just can't recognize the fact that like you zigged when you should have zagged, you know? So let's get one more thing. These are rapid fire questions. If you could have one tow truck theme song while you were driving in to see a customer client, what would the theme song be? Not
so much a theme song, more of just like a sound clip. Mrs. Doubtfire when she's running through the restaurant. Help is on the way, dear. Help is on the way. Love that movie. So if I could make that just be a sound clip, right as I'm rolling up.
If you could instantly master any skill unrelated to towing or your job, what would it be and why?
I would have said auto mechanics, but that's pretty related to my job. Language skills would be good. Just for better communication. And
in today's day and age, like it's getting more diverse. Like that is something like that customer relationship or like that's probably something that also people don't understand is like having that relationship with the customer, but also being able to be like, are they understanding what I'm saying? Do you understand that you need to put this in neutral or whatever it is?
I mean, like I'm the one that puts it in neutral.
Yes, but you
I know, get what you mean. I like there's definitely been times where there's been language barriers. And the way that I look at it is I only speak English and sarcasm. So whoever I'm dealing with is smarter than I am in English in whatever language they're speaking.
Right.
So I try to be as patient as I can. There's been times where I've pulled out my phone. I've done the Google Translate thing to try and at least get something along. It's just really small efforts to try and communicate in a more effective way.
Right. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? Like the more time you go and like the more time you put in, the chances of having a more dynamic situation that gives you more experience. And it's all just this big life cycle where it's like, okay, I do it. It sucks now, but it benefits me for the next one. So it doesn't suck as much. And then eventually I get to a point where like nothing sucks really at all because like I've kind of honed skills in everything, or I have the emotional maturity to disconnect when I see fit. Right. And then anything you want to leave off with?
Biggest thing is just, I mean, thanks again for having me on. It's been an interesting experience for the first time being hosted on a podcast. Like biggest thing I can leave off with to anybody watching is when you see those flashing lights, just please remember there's a human or two or three that are trying to resolve a situation that none of us want to be in for any longer than we need to. We're trying to do it as safely and quickly as possible. So the more room you give us, the safer it is for everybody, yourselves included. Even if you don't hit us, if you fly by us, that's added stress to everybody on scene. If you're flying by us without slowing down, that's potentially upwards of $700 to $800 of tickets, plus upwards of 5 demerits if a cop catches you. So just, it's in your best interest. If you can move over, please do. And if for whatever reason you can't, please slow down to 60 kilometers an hour. I've had one of my trucks get hit. Thankfully, I wasn't in it, but it could have been a very bad situation. So just, if you can, please give us the space to work. We'll be out of there faster than you realize if you give us room to work.
Of course.
So.
And with that, Davis, thank you so much. This concludes episode 22, Solo Spotlight. And with that, check us out. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, comment below. What questions would you have for Davis? I can send them along to him.
I mean, heck, if people even want to drop comments down below.
Exactly. You can check out the YouTube page.
Yeah, I'll do the best I can to kind of keep an eye and respond to anything that's directed to me. Any
comments, any advice you're looking for, anything like that, we'd love to hear it. And again, in the future, we'd love to have you back on the show. And
Sounds good.
Just check in with you to see how those experiences go.
Sounds good.
And here we go. And we're off.